Michael, as an instructional designer, is there something you'd like to help more teachers with?
I would. Space retrieval practice. It's something that I think I would really like to devote a lot of more time to helping faculty with and to help design it in different ways. I think it's really hard to implement. For people who aren't really familiar with that term, what I mean by space retrieval practice is it's a learning strategy that involves recalling information at increasing intervals of time, rather than cramming or having one or two big exams. So what you're doing is you're learning, then you're going back a little and recalling it, asking students to recall it. You move forward and move back. I really got the idea from this wonderful book I read, Make It Stick, The Science of Successful Learning. And in the chapter began with the quote, to learn, comma, retrieve. I was like, oh, okay, so really got me interested. And to think that when you go into memory, you're actually changing your memory. I love this idea. This is something that's sticking with me because that makes a lot of sense. If you could get people to go into their memory and recall and maybe alter the neural connections in your brain, you're actually changing what you know and what you think and what you remember. I think that's fascinating. So I would love to get more into it, but it's very hard to do. And there's a lot of reasons why I think it's not implemented more. One is, especially in higher ed, teachers have a lot of materials that they have to get through in 15 weeks. It's almost like there's no going back. This class is contingent upon another class, so I have to get to there. And it's hard for teachers to implement this back and forth, back and forth. Excuse me. Another thing is I think it sometimes gets a bad rap because it's a bit it gets conflated with testing, and there's a lot of criticism and politics today around testing, but this isn't testing. So I mean, to me, there's a big difference between testing as a measurement of someone's intelligence and testing as a way to recall information, to change how your memory works, to make that material, to learn it better. Two different, completely different things. So I like to be in this camp where recall is really about getting your memory to change and making stronger connections with the material and figuring out different ways to apply that material. So today, I think it's a great time to start or to get into it because I think the LMSs are a lot more sophisticated. There are tools in the LMS that allow a bit more for the ability to create instances, quizzes, things that allow students to go back and forth. There's sort of a mastery path that you could build in an LMS and personalized learning experiences, but you could always be asking them to go back a little bit and talk about what we learned and apply it forward. There's a lot of good note card apps like Anki. Maybe they will get more and more apps will be created so people could really get teachers could build with them and maybe have repositories of cards or share cards so it's not that much of a load for teachers. But I like that idea of teachers having sort of note cards that can be reused and applied whenever you want. So yeah, I would really like to help teachers think through and apply that to learn, retrieve idea. Because, in most other realms outside of education, outside of higher ed education, when you want to learn something, that's how you do it, right? If you want to learn how to box or fly a helicopter, it's all based on you learn a little, then you go back later and you try it again, you apply it. You're moving forward, but by going back, getting more solid, going forward, going back. It just seems that in higher ed, we don't do it as much. So yeah, that's something I really want to get better at helping faculty with.
Yeah, Michael, that I love what you're talking about, and it's kind of making me think some things in my head too of practical applications in my setting,
Please.
and that makes me think of being purposeful and intentional about creating experiences that are really powerful experiences for students. and then having them recall back on those. And I think what I'm hearing you say too is these experiences for students to recall on, they could be shared, they could be individual, but they're sort of powerful frames of reference that I think are in our memory because they're so impactful. Like I'll give you an example at like a young level, like the elementary level, right? So before I'm starting a big project, I've worked with a classroom teacher, and we had the students build a fort in the classroom. And the idea was we didn't set them up ahead of time. We knew there were going to be certain elements we wanted to see in this fort building process. We wanted
Mhm.
to see how they collaborated, how they communicated, how they had shared leadership, how they're going to allocate resources,
Right.
all of these sort of big life-centered skills.
Sure.
But what we saw in the middle of it all was we saw tears. We saw people yelling, and the loudest person was the one who was yelling. And we would stop and process. But what we noticed from that experience was the whole year we reflected back on the fort building challenge. We were
Okay.
able to call from it, and they were able to recall information from that because it was such a powerful experience. It wasn't us telling them, now, if you guys ever build a fort, this is what happened. It was like, no, you did that. Remember when you did that? And that's what it reminds me of these of creating these shared experience with students that they can recall, and it sticks in their memory because it's like it's something that is something they embodied, right? It wasn't just cognitive, it wasn't just emotional, it was a whole body experience that they were able to recall on. So that it's making me think about that when
Yeah.
you're talking about these ideas.
I love it. I love that idea.